When you hear that, how does it make you feel?
I used to play it in the backyard, man.
Me too. Me too.
Man,
yeah, chill bumps. I'm freezing right now.
It's honest to God, chill bumps. So thank you, Brandon Jolly, for coming on, and Kevin Head, so we can all discuss the 10-part series of The Last Dance. We're all Jordan fans, even though Kevin is a Duke fan, but he's still a Michael Jordan fan. And I have been obsessed with this series so much, maybe because it's quarantine, but also because I feel like we all needed a dose of Michael Jordan again for a lot of different reasons. And when you guys watched the series, Kevin, what was one of the biggest surprise or shocking thing to you about this series?
Honestly, I would say so many years have gone by, and I don't watch NBA as much anymore. I think it surprised me that I actually forgot how much I loved watching Michael Jordan play and how much I miss all those days. Like, I talked to my wife about it. Like last night, I watched the final episode, and I had tears in my eyes, and she was like, "Are you crying?" And I was like, I was like, I can't help it. And I was like, I can't explain it. Like, I just can't explain it. So just the nostalgia of it, the memories, the feeling, and just overall just realizing how much I miss those days, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it would be hard for even myself. There was several times where it was an emotional time watching, going back as a kid, realizing as I'm older how lucky I was to be able, and we all were, to be able to see his greatness before the first retirement and then when he came back. Brandon, what was one of your biggest things that you were surprised about?
I was just amazed at how much of it I could remember. Like Melissa and I sitting there watching, like I could tell her like this is getting ready to happen, or I remember that right there. Like, and like Kevin said, just that era of NBA basketball. Like, I'm a basketball junkie, especially college basketball, and I watched a ton of NBA back then. I don't watch it as much now. I watch a ton of college basketball. Just that era and just all those guys, the Magics, the Birds, the Hakeem Olajuwons, just that whole era was just awesome.
For myself, I think one of the biggest surprises to me was how much back then we loved Michael Jordan, the icon. I mean, he was the super big endorsement star. I mean, he was Black Jesus, according to Reggie Miller. But how human he was. He had this, and I also didn't understand how deep his passion to win really was, how deep rooted it was in him. But for me,
in anything, not just basketball, anything.
But to
cards, golf, everything.
The dude is pitching quarters with the security guys trying to take their money. And it's bad when he loses $20 and kicks them out.
Cutthroat quarter toss.
Yeah.
See yours rolls. I mean, but it was good for me, and I honestly think being able to see the human side of Michael Jordan is actually going to bring more fans to like him. My wife was sure she liked him, but she didn't really get to know him, and to see that side of him, I think he's going to capture a new audience that's older and younger than us, and even our age, because of the human side of him.
I mean, you think about it, he really hadn't played in almost 20 years.
I know. That's crazy.
The recency of, that's why everybody's LeBron. It's just the recency of it. Like you said, Brandon, it's going to bring in a whole new group of people that are going to have a newfound respect for what he did.
And Brandon, are you still coaching at the moment?
No, I don't do basketball anymore. I did it for 16 years. All I do is golf now.
You coached for 16 years?
Yeah, crazy.
And you have a couple state championship banners too, don't you?
I've got one. I got one win and one loss.
Oh, okay. I knew there was a win in there though.
Yeah. We went twice. We went 2010, 2014. Won it in 2010. Lost in 2014.
No,
yeah,
so
it's been 16 years.
Do you think you'll ever coach again?
I think so. Like, I get approached all the time. Like, States of High people ask me all the time when I'm coming home, and I think I would like to coach Tessa a little bit. I've never really coached girls. I think I may want to try to coach girls just to coach her a little bit to see how it is, because she's really getting more into it now, more interested with it. So I don't know. I mean, the past couple of years I've had off. It's been awesome because she made the middle school team at Northview this year, so I got to go and see some of her practices and see all of her games, and I got to help out with Bryson's team, so it's been fun doing the stuff with them. I mean, I miss the high school guys. I miss the Friday nights in the gym, but I can coach anytime I want. Being the dad to this age group, I can only get one shot at that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, good for you, man. Plus, you've done it. You walk away with a ring. I'm still trying to find one on eBay that fits. But, speaking of coaching, another thing that I took away from this documentary is that Bulls team in that era of basketball, in my opinion, could not survive today because of social media. I mean, could you imagine if Dennis Rodman was playing today and all of a sudden he needed 48 hours to go let loose and do God knows what with God knows who in Las Vegas, and the media knew about it? I mean, they would be demanding he'd be drug tested and go to rehab immediately. Yeah. They would need some sort of intervention. Plus the level of physicality of play that they went through, not today. No.
And, so I was thinking about that this morning, like, I'm sure we're going to get into it, so I don't want to drop the bomb this early.
Drop it. It's early.
There's a lot of comparisons with other players in Jordan, and I've always been the one to say, just don't even talk to me about it. There's just, for me, there's no comparison. So, but I was thinking today about, obviously there are players that play now that probably could survive as far as just the physical part of the game. But I don't think that any of the players that currently play are mentally tough enough to survive in that era of basketball, because they would have to change their games completely. Like Jordan, he knew that he was going to get completely murdered by a Detroit Piston if he took the ball to the rim.
Yep.
But he still took the ball to the rim.
Yep.
Guys today would be like, well, I'm not going down there. I'm going to sit up here in the corner and shoot this three. So I don't think mentally there's too many that could have lasted from this current day that could actually go play in that era.
The other part of that is not only did he not stop attacking the rim, but he started a workout program, got a trainer, gradually put on weight to withstand the beating that he knew he was going to take.
Yeah, just for that, yeah.
Yeah, today, back then if you weren't bleeding, it really wasn't a foul. Today,
right,
anything's a foul. Plus, the other part of comparison is too, there's these two rules they're old rules in the NBA, and it's called traveling and palming basketball. Now when I grew up, now I'm only 40, and but those were shit that they called, in rec ball and high school ball and in the NBA. But those rules are gone.
Yeah.
And you think about it too, like now they will throw players out for a hard foul.
Right.
Back then, they would have bench clearing brawls, and they would just send them back to the bench, and everybody would keep playing. Nobody would even get ejected.
Right.
They would just fine them. Like at the end of the game, they'd pay like a fine or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just the norm. I mean, now you get tossed from that game, you get a 4 or 5 game suspension. This one, like,
happened? Where was
they sat on the bench for like a couple seconds, and next time out, they're back in the
game.
Yeah. Lambeer wouldn't make it today.
No.
No.
I'll be honest with you. I almost forgot how I don't even know how to word it, how just mean Bill Laimbeer was. Like, I almost really forgot, like, when he found people, I don't think he even knew where the basketball was. Like, he was just punching people and dragging around.
Oh, yeah, he had a role. He knew his role.
Yeah.
Speaking of roles, what's your opinion now after watching this documentary of Scottie Pippen? Because apparently he is not happy with how he's been portrayed.
He was so good, like so good. Like I think if Michael Jordan wasn't Michael Jordan at that time, Scottie Pippen could have been classified as the best player in the NBA. Like he was so good.
You know,
I would agree with that.
He was definitely underrated. However, I will tell you something that changed in me for Scottie Pippen. I got in a discussion with someone yesterday about how he was underpaid. Absolutely. However, he took himself out of the game. He put himself and his ego ahead of the team because he got his feelings hurt because the coach called for someone else to take the game-winning shot. Now, regardless if he's earned the right to do it or not, you're still trying to win the game. So the fact that he pulled himself out, and then Tony hit the shot. So that's a problem for me. The bigger problem for that is during this interview, he's had now 22 years to reflect on that? 20 years to reflect on? No, God, longer than that.
And said
he would do it over again.
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't remember that. Like when that happened on the documentary, I didn't remember. I guess it probably wasn't said on media or a big deal at the time, but like I definitely didn't remember him basically sitting out of the end of a game like that.
You know, and even Michael called him
and
out.
It was a big game. It was a big game. It wasn't like it was an exhibition.
It was a playoff.
Right.
Yeah. It was the playoff.
Yeah, exactly. This wasn't some warm-up game. This is the playoffs. Brandon, you as a coach, if you're a superstar kid and you've coached a lot of kids who went on to play Division I basketball, kudos to your coaching. If your star player looked at you and said, I ain't going in, because you drew a play up for the number 2 guy, 3 guy to take the shot, what would you do? How would you handle that as a coach?
I don't even know. Like,
oh, I know.
I mean, I'd like to think that I'm not dumb enough to draw up a play for my number 2 guy.
But I was also smart enough.
No matter if all 50,000 people in the gym know that Scottie Pippen's going to take that shot, I'm still drawing up the play for him in that scenario. Just like in '98. In '98, everybody in the gym knew Michael Jordan was going to take that shot. He didn't draw it up for somebody else that time.
No, he didn't. But everybody knew this was Michael's last chance. And even what was it, Steve Kerr or somebody said, Pippen's like, get out of the way.
He said, just get out of the way.
Get out of the way.
So, but do you think, going back to Pippen though, I mean, yes, Pippen was smooth as could be and definitely a top player, but do y'all think that he would have, without Jordan pushing him, do you think he would have still found his own game and his toughness? I don't know if he would have.
No.
It took a long time, but I think Jordan eventually rubbed off on him.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. You think about his migraine game. Then you think about him taking himself out. Well, later on in those playoffs, when he hurt his back, he finally gutted one out.
He did.
I mean, it took a while, but Michael finally rubbed off on him.
Yeah.
That's a great point that I was making to that person yesterday, that, you know, there's been 3 chances where Scottie, 2 chances where he had the migraine, you know, it is what it is. But him coming back after the back strain helped kind of solidify his toughness. Like, he didn't just sit out. I just don't know if without Michael Jordan, if Scottie Pippen would have been as mentally tough or brought it. Because Michael Jordan made other people better. You knew. Did you see the looks that he was giving his teammates in practice? When he went like this?
Yeah.
Like, you got to show up every day with that. There is no taking a day off. There is no.
And you know, the thing is, what I think sets Jordan apart too is they even talked about it. Like you said, there was no off switch. He practiced harder than anybody in the gym, and he was also by far the most dominant player in the whole league, but still practiced harder than everybody. I mean, he could have, in my opinion, Jordan could have sat back and never practiced and still been Michael Jordan, but he worked hard as he could, and people saw that, was like, well, if he's working that hard, I should work that hard. And that's what he does.
Not only did they see it, but I don't think they had a choice, because they would have gotten rid of him and found someone else. Everyone.
Or he would have slapped them.
He just slapped the shit out of them.
I love the way he rode Scott Burrell. Like, I thought it was hilarious. Like, he killed Scott Burrell.
He did.
I'm sure as soon as that game was over in '98, Scott Burrell was ready for him to hit the road, because he
he
would
was
not let up on him. It was hilarious.
He rode him hard, and he even Steve Kerr said he rode him hard. He rode everybody. After watching this the series, what's your guys' thoughts now about Dennis Rodman?
I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. I mean, he was a huge part of 5 championship teams, 2 with the Pistons, and 2 with the Bulls.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a person that averages 3 to 5 points per game, but can that make that big of a difference in the outcome of a game, I mean, it's huge for a team.
Hey, didn't he have 20 rebounds and 0 points in like 7 games or 7 playoff games?
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
And the crazy thing about him, in college, he was like a top scorer. He averaged like 24 to 26 a game.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he got to the NBA, he transformed. He figured out what role where he could actually help teams, and he switched over and became rebound and defense. But he was a scorer.
People think that rebounding is just being big and banging. And look, when he broke down how he studied film and watched guys shoot, and he knew where the ball, how they would miss, I have never heard of that before. Brandon, have you?
No. That's just, all that is effort. I mean, the effort to go through that and to study the guy's shots like that, and then once you see that ball coming off the rim, you got 9 other people that are going to go get it. It's just who's going to go get it harder, and he did it harder than anybody else.
So I read his autobiography. I've got it here somewhere. It's been years ago when I actually read it, but there's basically a whole chapter in there where he talks about studying, and he finally figured out, like, rebounding, that's going to be my thing. And he talked about studying and having his friends shoot late at night so he could watch the ball bounce. And he'd say, okay, well, Jordan, he shoots like this, so I want you to shoot it this way. And he would study, and he said that then that's when, once he figured that out, he said I could add some theatrics to it, and I'd kick my foot up, and I'd do this, and I'd dive when I didn't have to dive. He said, because it's all about, the theatrics and being the best at what you can be. So, I mean, he set his mind to that and became that. And this documentary I thought was cool as far as Dennis Rodman goes. It showed both sides of him, the entertainment side and kind of the defiant side of him, but it also showed the human side of him, because I think people don't understand, how regular of a person he is and how a lot of that stuff was for show, and his way of coping with it, because he did not like being famous. He didn't like people around him. He just didn't like any of that stuff.
The tattoo.
Can you imagine a guy today, though, like the middle of the playoffs, missing practice to go WWE?
No.
I didn't remember that. Did you remember that?
I didn't remember that.
I really wasn't into WWE at that time, so I don't remember that.
Yeah, he went to WCW because they were rivals. I remember him being a part of wrestling, but I don't remember him missing after game 5, leaving to go wrestle and party with Hulk Hogan and missing practice.
I remembered that he had missed practice, but I didn't remember that it was for wrestling, because he he's talked before in interviews about how big of a deal people made about missing practice. He takes his shoes off because he says that his feet hurt all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And he'll take his shoes off like during timeouts or if he's sitting on the bench. And when he was, I think he was still at Detroit at the time, maybe. There was like a big ordeal about he was being defiant, refusing. He took his shoes off and he was like, my feet were hurting. Like I just took my shoes off. You know?
Dude, if your toes look like this, I'd want to take them off too. Let them puppies breathe.
You can tell though, just from the way he talks about everything, basketball and non-basketball stuff, that he's a pretty sharp, intelligent dude.
Oh, he's no dummy.
Yeah, like he comes off as he has no intelligence, no common sense, either one, but he's pretty bright.
I think the tattoos, the hair, and the piercings, it's a mask, it's an armor, it's hiding something, an insecurity on the inside. But I also don't think any other team could have dealt with Dennis Rodman, and we'll call it the shenanigans, or just the personality of Dennis Rodman, other than the Bulls and Phil Jackson. You know,
one of the things that I was surprised that they didn't show in this, I'd always heard the story about his actual first interaction with Phil Jackson was they met, it might have been in Krause's office or somewhere, and Dennis Rodman, they shook hands or whatever, and Phil Jackson said, like, his first words to him were, so you really have to use a tool to take your earrings out? And that was supposedly their first interaction. But on this documentary, Phil Jackson told that he walked into Dennis Rodman, didn't stand up to shake his hand or something.
Right. And was wearing that big floppy hat, and he was like, hat off or something like that.
I just think, like, I'm a big Spurs guy because I'm a big Popovich guy. So he had that little hiatus between the Pistons and the Bulls with the Spurs. And I just think that Popovich wasn't there yet. But I think he's the only other coach maybe besides Phil Jackson that could have done something with Dennis Rodman. And you think about if he was coaching at that time, does Rodman even make it to the Bulls? The Bulls win those last three.
That's a good point,
Yeah, that is a good point.
Daly was such a father figure to him. He was missing something. And Phil Jackson, I don't know if you think Phil Jackson filled the father figure void or just like a mentor friend, maybe both. I don't know. Once they started talking about Native American heritage and the link that they had, with that, I thought that was really neat. I didn't remember that part.
Yeah, I think Phil Jackson
philosopher. I think it stuck with Rodman. I think that was a big part for him. Because
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. He's an outside-the-box thinker.
Yeah, yep.
I did not know that Phil coached down in Puerto Rico and won a championship down there. Was it Puerto Rico? It was Puerto Rico, wasn't it? It wasn't the Dominican Republic, or was it?
I can't remember. I can't remember, but I didn't know that at all.
What I do know is wherever he coached, if you're the mayor and you get mad because the ref makes a bad call, you can stab him in the leg.
Yes.
Not a problem.
So
I've got a former player of mine that plays overseas still, and he's told me some wild stories about some of those games overseas. Like, it's crazy.
They take it to a different level.
Yeah, they're like, I guess over there in those basketball countries, it would be like soccer. The people that love soccer, but they have basketball, and there's some crazy soccer stories too. So.
But, don't you think that the reason basketball is as popular in these other countries is truly because, like the documentary talks about, the popularity and the global brand of Micheal Jordan and what the Dream Team did in 1992?
Yep. You were talking about social media. Can you imagine if Twitter and Instagram and all these social media outlets were around back then? I mean, think about how famous Micheal Jordan was back then. Now factor in everybody has a phone and internet and social media. He would have not been able to do anything. No. He wouldn't have been able to go anywhere.
He would have had to buy his own island.
Yeah, he definitely would have had to do something because, I mean, he was global. I mean, that's the part I just, there's superstars these days, of course, but
not only did social media not exist, but the internet wasn't even around.
Right? Yeah.
Like you couldn't even Google search Micheal Jordan, and he was.
That's true.
And my dad brought this up. He was just over here right before I got on. We were talking about the whole just in the first years of the NBA and all that stuff. If you didn't have a satellite dish back then, you didn't get to watch NBA games unless you had cable. You could catch like whatever the game of the week was or something. Yep. But my dad, we had a neighbor at the time that had a satellite dish because they were huge Carolina fans, Jordan fans, and he would at that time had whatever the package would have been, but you could watch Bulls games. So we used to go down there and watch them. So even thinking about how it was back then, you couldn't even watch the games unless you had cable or satellite dish or some way to actually get to the games.
Dude, thank God for Sports Center back then.
Yeah.
What was y'all's earliest memory of Jordan? Like, how far back can you remember?
So I saw him at Statesville Senior High in 1984. I was 4 years old.
Thing?
Yeah. And I even asked my dad just a little while ago. I said, now, I was definitely there, right? He was like, yeah, because I vaguely remember it, but I remember more of the story. So it's kind of one of those, like, I couldn't remember if I remembered the stories or if I remembered what I really remembered. But I do remember him being there, and I remembered watching him on TV. And when I was, I guess, probably 3 years old, I used to go see Dr. Hunter to get my teeth cleaned. And he had a picture of all the Carolina players, and he would point and tell me to name them all. So I could name them. So, I mean, my first, real memories is watching Jordan at Carolina and shooting on a little hoop in my bedroom.
Yeah, my earliest memories is I don't remember how old I was, but hearing the legend Micheal Jordan in the shot at Carolina. But probably when I started paying attention, I don't know how old I was, but when he won the dunk contest, that's probably my first memory of seeing the picture of him soaring through the air, and that was all I knew to see.
I can remember, like, I can't remember the shot 82. I can remember vaguely watching him some his last year at Carolina, like the 83-84 time right before he left Carolina. I remember the dunk contest stuff with him and Dominique, like, but probably around 84. So I guess I was 4 years old. I wish I could remember the shot, but.
Well,
you were 2.
and I vaguely remember the shot, but I do remember the Statesville thing, and I remember watching games, and then I can remember when I was in the first grade, the Jordan 1s came out, and I got those, and I remember wearing those, and at the time, I didn't realize what that did for me, like the obsession that got started with that probably.
And you didn't realize how uncomfortable they were.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
At the time they were the greatest though. They were the greatest shoe at the time,
if speaking of shoes though, if you think about it, like back then, like if you didn't wear Jordans, what were you wearing? And if you remember back in the
Converse.
Yeah.
All-Star Chucks.
You were wearing Larry Bird and Magic shoes, which you still couldn't find. But kids were being killed. Remember? Kids were being shot and killed for their Jordans. Were being taken. You don't hear about that anymore at all. Now people with their Jordans, it's almost more of like a collector's item. Maybe it's just our age group that we're in, but they collect them. They still have them. They maybe been taken to the box. Maybe they haven't. Seems like everybody has a shoe nowadays. But that craze of that initial Air Jordans coming out, and people were literally getting shot. Like, do y'all remember that at all?
Yeah.
I'm not really a sneakerhead, so I remember having when the 1s came out. I was a huge Carolina fan, so I had the Carolina blue and white ones. I wish I still had them. I think that's the only pair that I ever owned. Like, I was never really that into sneakers. Kevin, I know you are a huge sneakerhead. Do you have, like, every one in the series?
So I used to, and I still have a good amount of them. I still have the ones that are my favorites. I'm not as big into them as I used to be, just as I've gotten older. But like I have the ones. I have the Carolina blue and white patent leather ones. Like when you said that, I was like, ooh, I have a pair of those upstairs. But
So,
yeah,
Mine
I
weren't
have
patent leather. Mine were just leather.
Yeah, the originals were leather. Then they came out. I guess it's probably been, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. They came out with the patent leather Carolina ones. But I still have friends that are our age, Aaron Moore and Bryce Reese. They still are big collectors, and they still stand in line and have people pick them up for them. And there's some crazy Jordans out there for sure.
and not to mention any names, but I'm most positive that we know someone who literally has an insurance policy on their Jordan shoe collection.
Yes. Yeah.
That is nuts. I mean, you have an insurance policy on your Jordans. How much money, A, have you spent? And B, how much money are they worth? Like, wow.
And and so for me, and like true, the collectors and stuff will disagree with me on this, but I kind of got out of it when they started doing all the re-releases, the new colorways, all this different stuff. For me, I was always more about the original, the colors. I've still got some that I bought the year that they actually came out. Like I've got the briefcase Jordans that are still sitting in the briefcase, never been out, and like if they were to re-release that one today, I wouldn't even think about going to get it. Like I like. Yeah. So I like the originals and all of those for sure.
It's interesting because Jordan is now worth what, $1.9 billion. And if you think about that, I was listening to a interview or something. The Jordan brand outsells, I think it's the shoe, outsells the LeBrons by 7 times, or is it 9 times? It's a huge number. So when people talk about LeBron, just think about that for a minute. The dude hasn't played basketball in 20 years, and he is outselling arguably the number one player who's been in the NBA for the last, give or take. How that's debatable between him and Kobe or whatever, but arguably number one, number two basketball player and most recognizable player in the NBA for well over a decade.
But
that was a cool part of it. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I thought that was a cool part of The Last Dance that I really didn't know about, was how he got hooked up with Nike and how much their projections were of what they thought they should sell.
3 million.
How much and how much they actually sold, and how it was basically a 1-year contract. And if they didn't sell that number of shoes, he was going to be looking for another shoe company again.
Right. Yeah, that was a crazy
They
story.
look to sell $3 million and they sell what, $129 million or something?
Yes. How bad is Adidas and Converse kicking themselves in the ass?
Oh, to this like this morning, somebody said you should have fired you a long time ago.
But you know what?
But that whole Nike, it all comes down to marketing and stuff. I mean, the NBA, Nike should thank the NBA when they banned those shoes, the banned ones, and Nike said, we will pay you to keep wearing that shoe. We will pay your fine. Those sales skyrocketed when that happened. And that's all it took for them.
Absolutely. And if you guys remember, I can sing it today. When the commercial came on and I was singing it in front of my wife, Be Like Mike, genius.
Yeah.
I drink citrus cooler to this day because of Micheal Jordan.
If I can find it, it's hard to find these days.
No, it ain't. I ain't telling you where it's at.
You got a honey hole somewhere?
I got a damn honey hole. And my wife likes it. It's got too much sugar in it. I still drink it.
You used to could go to Interstate Bolt, because I worked there back in high school, and they would sell the pouches of it. Like you can mix 5-gallon cooler full.
Oh yeah. I have not found. Go ahead.
I saw on Twitter today, Gatorade tweeted out something about their different lines of bottles that they had put out through the years, and about which one was your favorite. And I can remember.
It needs it.
I can remember the glass bottle Gatorades because of
Me
Micheal
too.
Jordan, and how much better it seemed to taste coming out of the glass bottle.
It did. It for real did.
It's almost like they put a hint of beer in there. So much better of a glass. I don't know.
But
I did.
citrus cooler and lemon ice. Those were the two.
Dude, that citrus cooler for real. I think it's funny that every time I'm in somewhere, if I think about it, I'll look. I've not seen citrus cooler in years.
It's close to our house.
I'm gonna go find it.
I love
tomorrow.
About Micheal Jordan that I didn't realize too. Speaking of drinks, I didn't realize he liked to drink Miller Lite.
Oh yeah.
When he cracked that beer in the locker room after the game when they were tired, and he was like, "I normally drink Gatorade, but this ain't it." And then Scotty,
remember how bad?
Like, why y'all filming us drinking beer?
You remember how bad Gator gum was? Remember Gator gum?
Gatorade gum wasn't that good.
It was good for about 10 seconds, then it turned to powder.
It was terrible.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about is, obviously the language in it, you'd have to get an edited version, but I swear I think they should make it like part of a curriculum for younger kids to watch that are interested in sports, and just to show, the dedication, the sacrifice, the work ethic. For me, it just solidified for me how just dominant he was. And I just thought there's never going to be another athlete like that. I don't think.
The dude was making up stories about other people talking shit to him that never maybe really happened, just to motivate himself. I mean, George Karl didn't say hey to him in a restaurant. And he was like, oh, okay. That's what it's going to be. All right. I mean, but to your point, Kevin, yes. You and I have talked about this too. We didn't want to talk too much because we were in this podcast, but the edited version is actually, I think, on ESPN too. But this is going to be when my kids really dive into sports. We're going to have that conversation of, do you want to be good or do you want to be great? And watch this. And this is what it takes to be great. And to that point, Michael said that he thinks he's going to come off like an asshole. People aren't going to like him because of this. And because people did get to see that he pushed people really hard. He did bully his own teammates. He bullied the opponents and he bullied his teammates. But that's what it took for him to be great. But that's also what it took for the team to be great. And there's not I think that's a big difference between him and LeBron. I don't know him. Never played with him. I know that's shocking. But I don't see LeBron taking that approach, that alpha leader. I don't care if you don't like me. I don't give a damn. We are here to win. It's about rings and championships. And I think that's what set that mindset, that strong-willed, kick-ass, take names. Michael was a guy's guy. And there's not a lot of guys today, because we kind of live in a society where that's not okay to be alpha, dominant. It's kind of frowned upon. So that goes back to what we were saying earlier. I don't know if that would be allowed today.
That sort of bothered me, the way that was portrayed in that thing. Like, he wasn't like that all the time. He was like that 2 to 3 hours a day, whether it was at practice or at a game. Like, if he was like that all the time, he would be sitting on planes by himself, sitting on the bus by himself. But, like, he always was surrounded by his teammates. It's just that 2 to 3 hours when he stepped through the gym doors or stepped across the lines to that floor, like, it was a different mindset for him. But, like, how many people you see that would go out with one of your fiercest competitors, like Larry Bird or Danny Ainge, something like that, and they're playing golf on the day that you have a game against them?
Yep.
Yeah.
And played 36 holes.
Yeah. And, like, and have the best time ever. But then when the lights came on and he entered that gym, he was out for blood.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. There's people that, I mean, his talent was undeniable. And there's people that may be more talented than him, definitely close to talent, but that competitive nature was just separated.
Yeah.
It's unprecedented. And I've tried to think, I don't know if I could think of someone in baseball or even in the NFL that rivals that deep of a competitive drive. You know, I don't think
Tiger Woods. I think Tiger Woods has been the closest.
Tiger Woods would be close. I don't think he's pitching quarters with security, trying to beat him. But maybe, you never know. A Denny's waitress, maybe.
And I can think people that have like the flashes of the competitiveness and greatness. Like, I mean, I would argue that Mike Tyson at a certain part in his career had that will to win and dominate, but he fell apart too. I mean, you know, Jordan held this for 3 decades. I mean, he dominated for 3 decades.
I think you can make the argument for Brady as well.
Yeah, and me and Brandon mentioned that one earlier when we were talking about it.
Yeah, I just don't know if Brady takes it off the field in other aspects of his life like Michael did. Definitely in between the lines for sure. Which brings up a good point too. People want to jump all over Tom Brady because of his antics on the sidelines and him jumping on his teammates or even his coaches, you know, yelling at one another. But it's just a competitiveness that they have. I mean, these guys are super athletes. They're the best at their craft, you know. And when you win that many championships, it's not because you're the most likable guy in the room. But I also found it interesting that Michael was so good with the press. You know, he could be having the game of his life, go back in the locker room, and they show Michael had a couple minutes before the game. And I didn't know that he would go to children's hospitals and visit, or his dad was set up to where he saw some kid in each city, which I thought that was, you know, that's another human element to him that I didn't know about. And then, or after the game, he would meet that child or whatever. But then he would go out there in front of the media, and he was so charismatic. I think we all got lost in that of like, can you imagine a day in his life? And when they're shooting a documentary, when it's this commercial, and he's saying, yeah, a lot of people want to be Michael Jordan for a day or for a week. But he was like, no, you don't. And there is so much truth to that. All the glitz and the glamour and the money and the planes and all the Ferraris and all that stuff sounds great. But could you imagine a camera being like this in your face? No personal space. That's what my wife was saying. She was like, I would have you telling people, get the hell out. Somebody's getting slapped because I need my personal space. And I just think it took a special human being to be able to withstand all of that.
And think about how much exponentially more it would be today. Like you were talking about, Kevin, with the social media, like how much worse it was terrible for him then. So much pressure for him then. Think of how much it would be now.
You know, the other part of that too, Brandon, is I think people today would be out there trying to find anything negative about him. They would be trying to tear him down because that's what people do.
And they did it back then too with all the gambling stuff and on. And I remember when all that was happening too. I mean, for me, that was them trying to tear down somebody because he was just too big, you know, and people didn't like it. And, you know, he admits it. He's always admitted it. Yeah, I gamble. When I play golf, I gamble. But who cares? Like, who cares about that?
So I have two. One thing I want to throw at you guys, but one question. If you can admit that you gamble that much, and you know you've lost $54,000 to Slim, do you get audited? Like, do people want to know how much money you've won or how much money you've lost? They really don't give a damn about your losses. What they care about is Slim cares about your winnings.
That's right.
So how do you get away with that? Like, how can you be this notorious golf gambler and somebody not get at the door?
Yeah.
How does that work?
But, you know, when they were talking about the money, I mean, for us, it's like, I mean, I couldn't imagine. Dude, that for Jordan, he was like, I mean, giving somebody 10 grand was like us owing somebody $5 or something. You know, I mean, it was no
54 G's was nothing. That's like us going out to Twin Oaks playing a quarter a hole.
You're right. But here's the thing. Why the hell did he write a check? Does he not know how Al Capone got busted? Al Capone wrote a $14,000 check for a horse. Why are you writing a check? I mean, damn. You know what? Hey, let me go to Western Union. I'll get you. Hang on. I mean, what are you doing?
But, you know, that all goes back to just being competitive, though. For him, it wasn't about the money. It was about just being competitive, you know, and that's he was always on. He was always on. He was going to beat everybody and everything.
You know, but he also admitted that it came out that he gave his story initially was he gave the guy a personal loan. But then when he was sworn in on the oath, he was like, oh, yeah, I lost. So he knew that it didn't look good from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, but he didn't want to tell people he lost. That was the whole thing. He didn't care about the money. He just didn't want people to know he lost.
You think that's it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Especially $54,000. And by the way, if you ever become friends with a guy named Slim, just know he ain't the manager at JCPenney's.
That's right.
I mean, come on. So let me ask you guys this, because I got into a text discussion with a very smart, a little bit older, well-educated friend of mine. And he said, you know what? I'm just going to read it to you because I can't believe he said it. He will remain anonymous. Here we go. I love how they glossed over the 18-month suspension as an afterthought. It's all bullshit, and you know it deep inside. He hung his father out to dry. That's worse than anything. Proves that the fact that he was addicted and couldn't control himself. I said when he came back and was gambling in the locker room. He said he sold his dad out. His dad was murdered because he was a gambler and had outstanding debt. You guys believe that at all?
No.
You know there's no gambling debt that Micheal Jordan couldn't pay.
Right.
I mean.
No, I agree. But in that book, the guy, I think it was in episode, 5 or 6? The guy who wrote the book about Micheal and their gambling. Didn't he say Micheal owed him like 1.2, 1.3 and hadn't paid or something like that?
Yeah.
You know,
there
I
was
would like
something
to
like
think,
that.
too, that Michael's going to pay it. He's a man of his word or whatnot. But maybe he'd like to keep – maybe he owed the dude 1.3, but it started
But
off
he was going to
like,
try to win it.
Yeah,
And I figured he was going to try to
up.
win it back.
Yeah.
It's that competitive nature. Micheal was going to keep calling double or nothing until he won.
Right. Yeah.
It was like that day on the golf
course. That's just the way he was.
Steve.
But Brandon, I'm glad that you brought that up because when that came out in the documentary, I didn't remember that people actually had that theory somehow that his dad's murder was connected to gambling. Like, I didn't remember that people actually thought that way.
They still think it today.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any truth to that at all.
So I will say
I forgot about that part too, that the whole theory about Stern suspending him and that's why he went to baseball.
Yeah.
I had forgot about that.
Me too.
So let's think about this for a second. Let's just go down the rabbit hole that Micheal had an outstanding debt and his dad was killed.
I'm listening.
The only thing that makes me think, is actually that's not true. I don't understand how your son is Micheal Jordan and you're tired and sleepy and you decide to pull over on the side of the road and take a nap. At that time, there were cell phones in the car. You could have called Micheal. You could have called Michael's best friend George. You could have called anybody, and they would have come and gotten you or whatever. Like, is that something that his dad would regularly do, is pull over on the side of the road to take a nap?
There was a lot of stuff in that didn't add up. Like, it was just a strange situation all the way around.
Strange turn of events. And I just don't know if his dad really pulled off the side of the road to take a nap. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there was maybe a little more to it. Like maybe his car was taken there with him. Like I don't know about the being on the side of the road taking a nap, but
I want to say that I know that one guy's last name was Green. I'll never forget it. But I read something about this on the anniversary of his dad's death. I'll never forget. I was actually at the beach with the Steagals and the Garlands when his dad died. And I can remember just being devastated. Like, what has happened? You know, how is Michael going to handle this? And I was young, so I didn't know anything about the gambling and stuff like that. But do you think it's possible that Michael did owe people money, higher ups money, I don't know, gangsters, whatever, like loan sharks, that he was just trying to double or nothing, and he just couldn't win it back, and they maybe did some sort of retribution? I don't know. Is it possible, I guess is what I'm asking.
I mean, anything's possible, I guess, but I think he's competitive, and I think he was double or nothing. But I mean, I think if somebody ever got to the point where they like, look, man, you owe us money, I think he would have been like, all right, here's your money.
Here's another thing.
But and then he'd be like, but what you doing Saturday? Let's go start it over Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think that conspiracy is true. I mean, I love a good conspiracy like anybody else, but I don't believe his dad. I don't believe that was due to gambling. But I will never.
I would venture to say that he had business relationships with people a lot sketchier than Slim.
Oh,
yes.
I think that's a safe bet, my friend.
Yeah.
I think that's a safe bet.
As sketchy as Slim was, I bet he had a lot worse friends.
So how crazy is it that you've been trying to win a championship your entire life, and the first time you win the championship, you don't go to the White House because you're playing golf with Slim, losing money apparently, and trying to win it back?
Man,
I had heard stories. I'd heard stories that there was a ton of people that wanted to play Michael in golf because he was so bad, but they knew he would drop money left and right. That there was tons of people that would get in line to play against him because they knew they could beat him and take his money.
I can believe that.
And do you remember when the media used to say, like, oh, Michael's going to join the PGA Tour? And I'm like, I don't think so.
Man, so how good was that scene, though, when they won the championship on Father's Day and Jordan finally just let it all out, you know? Like,
90,
and I remember
96.
Yeah, and I remember the pictures of him in the locker room,
Yep.
Laying on the floor crying. But this documentary was the first time I've ever seen the actual, like, the full, however many seconds of him just flat out, like, bawling. Like, he just finally just let it all out,
I've never heard the audio before that.
Me neither.
Ever.
Me neither.
It gives me chills. Look, I man up.
I think that's the first time I've ever.
I cried. I tell you.
Oh, I did too. I did. I think I cried a little bit every episode, but that one really got me. But I think that's the first time I've ever looked at him and saw him as the human being, though. He's always been supernatural to me. So that scene, I was like, that's real. Like, I can relate to that because I know why he's doing that, and he just let it all out finally.
I think seeing that part, and I had no idea about this security guard, his head of security, Gus. Had no idea. Seen the pictures of him. I saw him pop up in the documentary, and no idea. I also thought it was weird that Michael didn't have these no-neck, muscle-bound dudes as his security guards, but he had the one dude with the curly blonde hair.
The perm.
The perm.
He had to do with the perm on your suit.
Hey, that man meant business. If you can rock a perm, come on now.
Let me tell you something. When I learned about his relationship and that he would call Gus sometimes at 2:00 in the morning just bawling about his dad, and how Gus would get up in the middle of the night and tell his wife, Michael needs me. I mean, it's just like that again goes back to this human side of our childhood idol, athlete, superhero, superstar, icon. Even in the middle of the night, at 2:00 in the morning is having a hard time and he needs somebody, you know? And think about all the people today that think, you know, how tough they have and how lucky somebody else is. But even Micheal Jordan, who is the top of the top of the top, even he has a bad moment or a bad day and needs some help.
I read.
Well, you know, I was just going to say, at that time, Jordan, I mean, he was so big, he was basically alone, you know? I mean, so luckily he did have Gus and some of these other guys, because, I mean, when you're that famous, all you have is just a very small, tight circle, you know?
I had read somewhere, I read so much stuff with this documentary. I don't think that it said it on the documentary, but it said that he covered all his medical bills when he was going through that bout with cancer too. Like, I forget how much money it said it was, but he paid all of Gus's medical bills as well.
You know, I thought about that, and I figured he absolutely did, you know. And I also wonder, I think Gus not only had lung cancer, but if you look, he had this huge scar here. So I think he must have had some sort of metastatic disease that went to his brain or something, because he has some huge scar here on his head. But that was, as sad as that is, I think, again, that human element that it shows about Micheal is going to make him, he's not coming across as an asshole. I get what he's saying and why he would think that, but people are seeing through that. As a matter of fact, they're seeing that competitiveness and they're thinking to themselves, why am I not more competitive? Or why is my son not more competitive, or my brother? Or, you know what, that is a good thing. It's a good thing to have good, healthy competition to bring out the best in yourself, or or something better in somebody else.
I thought it was interesting that they didn't cover. I thought even at the end of it, maybe just in like some of the scrolling text, it would talk about like his comeback with the Wizards and stuff too. You know, I know it was about the Bulls and the 6 championships and all, but you know, just talking about some of that stuff. Did y'all remember when he came back to the Wizards?
Oh yeah.
For those 2 seasons, he donated all of his salary to the 9/11, the families of 9/11 that had suffered a loss for 9/11. He donated both your salaries to that funding. Like, he was always doing some stuff like that. But I was kind of surprised they didn't touch on like some of that stuff too. But I mean, I get the point of the documentary, but showing a little more of the behind the scenes. But he maybe, also didn't want that part of it, showing there's no telling how much money he's donated and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think he, like you talk about LeBron, he self-promotes all that philanthropy stuff.
Yep.
Jordan doesn't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, there's no telling how much money he's giving away helping people, but he's not going to talk about that.
That's another big difference. You guys are right. The last 2 years, I think that he played for the Wizards. I think he signed $1 million contracts. But however, I do think he got part ownership of the team. Is that right? So he was a part owner.
He was part owner and GM at one point, and then a player. So I mean, he kind of did a little bit of everything for him.
So speaking of money,
what was it, $90 million in salary over the course of his career?
Yeah, it was something like that.
The best player in the world only made $90 million, which was a lot of money then. But I mean, there's guys that signed that for 3 years now.
Yeah, they
How
are.
about that JJ Redick?
And he played for 16 years or whatever, and only made $90 million. That's like $5 to $6 million a year that he played for.
So
that's crazy.
So it's funny you say that, because I think until Michael's last 2 years, he signed for 33 and 33 million. But until then, I don't think he ever made more than 3 or 4 million a year up until the 97-98 season. But here's a good trivia question for you. Through the course of their career, who made the most total money? Dennis Rodman, Micheal Jordan, or Scottie Pippen?
Are you talking just in NBA?
Just an NBA
salary money?
Yeah.
I would maybe go Rodman on that one, actually.
All right. Brandon, you're right. Scottie Pippen earned about $118 million. Jordan made not 89 to 93 million. I've read two different sources, and Rodman only made 24 million. He spent that at the titty bar.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would have
seen.
I would have thought his San Antonio days would have got him up over the hump, but I guess not.
No, and see his next year, salary wise, with the Bulls, I think he made 8 or 9 million. So I looked this up at the very beginning of the documentary, but I can't remember. But so a lot of people are like, man, Scotty was getting shafted. He did. You're 100%. But buddy, when he left her there and he went to Houston, he got paid in Houston and in Portland. Yeah. So it all, washes. However, he should have made a ton more. And today, could you imagine what Micheal Jordan would make today? Hey, don't think it's crazy, but he literally could have been the first $500 million contract, without a doubt. Maybe $1 billion. 20-year, $1 billion.
Do y'all think they could have come back that next year and won again?
Without a doubt.
For the 7th one.
Well, you know what? Hold on.
Depends on who they brought.
That's what I was going to say.
Depends on who they brought back.
If they kept the same squad, do you think they could have?
Well, not just the squad, but Phil had to come back because Krause already told him, you can go 82-0, you ain't coming back, which is the dumbest thing ever. Okay? Which, by the way, Jerry Reinsdorf should take a whole lot more heat than I think that he's getting because he was the owner. He could have very easily said, no, if they want to come back one more year, we'll sit down and talk about it, okay? So you'd have had to get Phil to come back. Michael would have. You know Dennis is coming back, but you were going to have to pay Scottie Pippen. And I don't know if Jerry Reinsdorf would have looked and said, we got a guy who's arguably at the peak or just past the peak of his prime, who's going to want a long-term contract, who has pulled himself out of the game and had a migraine when it counted. And, by the way, didn't have surgery when he should have had it. Not missed the regular season. Are we going to give this guy $80, $100 million or whatever it is over the course of a long contract? I don't know that they could have got all four pieces to come back.
And that's what I mean. If you just threw out all the BS and was just like none of that going on, same guys are back playing, Phil Jackson's coaching. I mean, I think they could have went as far as they wanted to for several years.
And let me tell you something. Do you think
that next year was a strike too? So they only played like 50 games.
Did they have?
I forgot all about that.
So
next year was a strike. So I mean, they were older. Jordan was 35, 36.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have had to play 82 games. I mean, his legs would still be fresh after 50 games.
So who won the championship that year?
San Antonio.
Did they?
In 99? Yeah, that was Tim Duncan's first year.
That was their first one, and their run of 5 in like 10 years.
That's right.
That's right.
Yep. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they'd have won for sure if they could have come back.
Because something happened. I think David Robinson or something got hurt in 98, and they sucked. Got the first picked Duncan, and then they win the championship.
Yeah.
Another underappreciated, great basketball player.
Fundamentals. He's fundamentals.
God almighty, that's something that'll fundamental you to death.
Timmy D off the glass.
He reminds me a lot of, another guy who would have fundamental you to death? Brandon Jolly. Ain't nobody got fundamentals like that.
I knew you were going to say
God. Fundamental.
All I had to do.
Huh?
All I had to do was stand around and shoot. That's all I had to do.
Hey, you had one of the nastiest head fakes still.
I was like the Klay Thompson of 1998. Kyle Korver.
Kyle Korver. Oh. Hey, who was it on the documentary? It might have been Scottie Pippen that said something along the lines of, Jordan was just out there doing his own game, and luckily he just let all of us play or something. It was something along those lines. I can't remember how he worded it, but I think that everybody knew. Like, I mean, I just think everybody knew that they were playing with somebody on the court that they couldn't be. He had something above everybody, and I think all of them recognized it.
Do you really think all those other teams, like the Suns, the Sonics, the Trailblazers, the Jazz, do you really think they thought they had a chance, or you think they knew they were playing for second place?
I think they had to know. I think they had to have known that. How could you not? I mean, I think back about being in like middle school or high school playing, and you'd be playing a certain team. Like, I'll never forget being in middle school and we were going to play Lionel Reinhardt, and it would be like, well, tonight's not going to be our night. We got to play Lionel. So, and I just think about stuff like that. And like when we were in high school and Sean Coleman, and, you had these dominant players, and then you multiply that by like 50 or whatever the case may be. And I mean, there's no way. These guys, there's no way. And people can say they weren't scared of him, but there were people like, God Almighty, I don't want to guard him tonight. I hope I don't have to guard him tonight.
That Ron Harper thing where he got mad because they put Elo on him, like,
yeah,
you would have been put in basketball lore for the rest of your life if you would have guarded. Why would you say that you got mad? Let Elo be the GOAT and quit worrying about it.
Yes, but I do think Ron Harper at the time thought that he could have guarded Michael better and he would have missed a shot. I do think some of these guys think they had a chance. I think Reggie Miller's competitive as hell, and he thinks they could have done something. I think Gary Payton is competitive, and they did have a strong team with Sean Kemp. And I think I love to see that old Michael Jordan looks at this interview with Isaiah and is like, yeah, he says that now. Like, you can still see the fire in him about Isaiah. And when he talks about Payton, he slides that iPad back and goes, I ain't never worried about the glove. Like,
yeah.
Here's what I love today. If any of those guys challenged Michael Jordan, he'll get a plane or a helicopter to go find a court, and they will duke it out.
Yeah.
How good were those iPad scenes?
They were great. Him seeing his actual reaction was so good.
That had to be, that had to have been probably my favorite part of the whole thing was those iPads.
They were funny.
Well, sorry, Kevin, about the iPad scene. To see Michael Jordan, still one of the most popular sports figures of all time and today, who's worth damn near $2 billion, and everything that man touches turns to literal gold. From tequila to buying the Hornets for $175 million, and now they're worth $1 billion, which is nuts. But yet, to see him still respect his mama, like what she says, you just don't see that a lot today. And I had read or listened to an interview somewhere to where I guess maybe they saw some rough cuts about the documentary on episode 1 and episode 2, and his mama told him he ought not be smoking them cigars.
Yeah.
He didn't smoke another cigar for another interview because his mama got him on his ass.
I wanted to go back to when we were talking about people guarding him and all, and like Ron Harper and all that. I was thinking about this too. Your guy that's in the NBA that's sitting on the bench that you might not ever know his name. Those guys are still way above anybody that we've ever played with. You know what I mean? Like, to just make it onto the practice squad in the NBA, you're good. And then you have your guys who are, known and are good and are superstars. They all have that mentality of that they're good. So Ron Harper, that's the competitive, the guy, like, oh, I could have guarded him, I could have done that. But I think that they all still knew. Nobody's going to ever say, well, I'm glad I wasn't guarding him. Just, everybody's going to be like, oh, I could have shut him down. But I keep thinking about the fact that Jordan made stories in his head. For me, it's almost like he had to do that to give himself a reason to play harder, because I honestly think that sometimes he was bored. Like, he was just so good. I think he had to do that to give himself something to do. You know?
I don't know if it was he was bored. I mean, that could have been it. But I think another part of that, it goes back to what he said, is that he knew that when he walked into the arena to play, there was somebody sitting somewhere that had never seen him play, and he was going to put on a show for them. So it wasn't just about being the best, and it wasn't just about winning. It was about showing everybody else what they were coming to see. You know,
you're going to get what you paid for.
You're going to get what you paid for. And today in the NBA, we know. I mean, teams get fined, like the Spurs, if they sit some guys. You know, which I can understand you wanting to sit some of your older players so you can save their legs for the playoffs. Because now a division championship doesn't mean anything. They don't care about that banner. You know, unless you win the championship, who cares that you've won 17 in a row conference championships, but 0 banners, the ones that count. So
can you think about guys today that are injured, sneaking off back, going to their college to play pickup because their pro team wouldn't let them?
Yeah.
I mean, can you see anybody in the NBA doing that today?
No.
Guys in the NBA, you're going to be out 6 weeks. All right. They're putting on 20 pounds. Just sitting there doing nothing.
Cam Newton ain't even on the plane going to the away games. You sure as shit don't see him on the sidelines. Well, you did towards the end, but you don't see that today. Like that.
Michael says, "Oh, you won't let me play here? I'll go back to Chapel Hill and I'll get whatever run in I want."
And the doctor's like, "Man, you've really how have you been doing this?" Oh, well, you know. And think about that. He truly was risking his health by doing that.
Yeah. His career, his whole career.
Yeah.
Imagine if that foot didn't heal. You know, we would not.
It could have been like a Penny Hardaway or Grant Hill. An injury that you never overcome. And we never know this Micheal Jordan.
So true. It's so true.
And then I like that they touched on the when he was filming Space Jam, how he had the court built. He would film for 9-10 hours a day. Then they play basketball for 4 or 5 hours. He'd lift weights. Because that's when he was making his comeback. And there he was again, working harder than everybody, you know?
There's few humans on earth that do that kind of crap.
Wouldn't you have loved to have sat in that gym and watched those games? Because those were all-star games, you know?
Yeah. Flying people in from everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And can you imagine, too, that, I mean, they all say Michael was historically one of the best trash talkers in the game. I would love if they had a mic'd up on him so we could hear what was he saying? Like, you know, I mean, in practice, he was calling his own teammates, "Ho, come on, ho, what you doing, ho?" You know? So, I mean, what are you saying to your opponent? I mean,
and I would venture to say he says whatever he wants to because he's going to back it up. So,
yeah.
Man,
have any of y'all have the Olympic part was one of I love that part of it. Have either of you read the Dream Team book?
No, I haven't.
I've not.
Oh man, y'all need to get it and read it because it touches base in the documentary about what went on in Barcelona and leading up to that, and the practices that they went through with that team. But the book goes into a lot more detail. Like, it is unreal what all went on that trip. I mean, it talks about him playing cards till like 4 o'clock in the morning and then catching like a 2-hour power nap and then getting up and going and playing 36 holes of golf and then going out and scoring like 35 against Argentina that night.
God.
See, for me, that's what I want to know that. I need to see. I love that. He's going to play cards. He's going to go play golf, and he is going to whoop your ass. You know what I mean? Like but that's what I go back to saying, like, he was a guy's guy. He's a man's man. You know, but he could back it up. And Dennis Rodman, also, to your point about Dennis went on that bender or whatever he did, and they were trying to do, you know, what is it called? Indian catch-up. We used to run them in baseball, Brandon, where you had the guy in the back come to the front. And Michael told him, we're going to walk or a fast walk. We're not running.
Slow,
And Dennis takes off.
He said,
come on, sprinting. but that lets you know, too, again, Dennis wasn't a dummy, and Dennis was an athletic freak himself. He was prepared.
Yeah.
People don't realize the different level of what these athletes are. I mean, it's just, and it's what I try to convey to my kids that I'm getting to try to go play college basketball. Division I, Division II, Division III, there's not much of a separator in terms of talent. Yeah, the Division I players, especially your upper echelon ones, there's a big difference in talent. But for the most part, from Division I to Division III, there's not a huge difference. It might be an inch or two on this point guard or 10 pounds on this post player. Like, these athletes at the NBA level, especially the Jordans, the Barkleys, the Magics, the Birds, it's just like, even Bird, like, he doesn't look like an athlete, but he would probably go out there and smoke you in any sport that you wanted to play.
Probably.
Most people don't. He played baseball at Indiana State too. Most people don't know that, but he was a two-sport athlete in college.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. There's actually a rare autobiography that only like a couple hundred were printed about him, and it had his daughter in that book. And my grandfather actually had one of those, and I don't know what he did with it, but I don't know what it is. But something happened to where I think Larry put the nicks on it, going like full blown. But yeah, a few hundred were printed. And there was some stuff in there that he didn't like, so it didn't make it to, I guess, mass production or whatnot. But
that'd be interesting.
It would be. I didn't realize that he was a football player though.
Jordan?
No, I'm sorry, baseball player Larry. Yeah, what was he, a pitcher or an outfielder?
I think he was. I think it was a pitcher for Indiana State.
Yeah, Yankees. That's something.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Man, when he released the ball, he was halfway to home.
But what about Francona saying if Jordan would have dedicated 3 years just strictly to baseball, he'd have been in the major league?
I was just getting ready to bring that up. Because they talked about him going into batting. He'd hit balls for 2 or 3 hours, then do a full practice with them, then go back and hit balls for 2 or 3 hours. And they talked about he was on like his second or third layer of skin on his hands or something. But there again, he was going to be the best. I mean, he was going to work to be the best, and I think he probably would have ended up playing Major League if he set his mind to it and wanted to do it.
You know, the fact that he did bat over 200, 202, but they highlight he drove in over 50 runs. And Michael started off with a 13-game hit streak in Double-A, you know, and then they started, you know, hitting him with the curveball, which
had not played baseball since high school, and they drop him into Double-A, and he drives in 50 runs.
Right.
He hasn't picked up a bat in 13 years. I mean, that just goes to tell you what a super freak athlete the man was.
And how crazy it's real. And how crazy is it too that he even talked about like just the knowledge of I needed to get my body in baseball shape.
Yep.
So it was a completely different workout regimen, like different muscles, different muscle memory, reflexes. Because then when he talks about coming back to the NBA, he was like, I had a baseball body. He was like, I had to get back in basketball shape. So just the thought process behind it all is more than what most people even can comprehend.
You know, but even go ahead.
Have you seen the interview with Roy Williams where he talks about when Jordan came back for his sophomore year at Carolina? I think Coach Smith had told him that he needed to get in better shape over the summer, and he came back and they were running 40s, and Jordan ran like a 4.38 40.
Yes.
Yes. And to this day, Roy Williams still says that's true. Some people say that's folklore, but I think it's real. I mean,
he said they had multiple coaches time it, didn't believe it, made him do it again, and he did it again.
Can you imagine? I mean, the number one, what was it? The fastest combine time this year was 4.3 or 4.4. You know, and those are guys who are in football. Michael Jordan was 6'6".
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of 6'6", 4.38 guys.
And he probably played at 200 pounds at Carolina, I would say. 190 to 200.
190 to 200, probably. Because I think
6'6", 190 running a 4.38.
It ain't fair, damn it.
But you know, to go with
the
6'6"
or the 4.3?
The whole thing. The whole package ain't fair.
But you know, to go back to the whole, you know, already having the talent, You know, like there's no question the talent was there. But just the knowledge, the basketball IQ, just everything, like, you know, to hear him talking about, you know, that final shot, you know, it wasn't for him to tell the story. It wasn't like, oh, well, I knew I needed to do this. He straight up was like, I knew he played defense leaning up on his toes. If I could just get him going one way, he wouldn't be able to stop. Just people don't get that.
Yeah.
Like, people don't understand the thought and the forethought that, like, Jordan had with, he knew what his defender, how his defender played. He knew how he could beat him. You know, one game he might drive to the basket and score 30. The next game he might shoot 20-foot jumpers all night and score 30. Like, he knew what he was going to do before it ever happened. You know?
Yep.
People don't understand that.
Can you remember exactly where you were at when he hit that shot?
Yeah, I do. And I know where you were too, Kevin.
I don't remember. I don't remember where I was.
Where are you at, Brandon?
I was in Kentucky. I was on like a mission trip with our church, like a Habitat for Humanity type thing, building houses. We were in West Virginia, but we had rode over to Kentucky with like our youth leaders' parents or something lived there. And they were our host family that night. And I was upstairs in one of the bedrooms they put me in, watching TV from that bed, remembering him hitting that shot. I mean, I can remember like it was yesterday.
If I'm not mistaken, Brandon, we were at the Purple Parrot on senior week. Or Kevin, you and I.
We were.
Because it was in June.
I think we were. Yeah.
I think we were,
actually.
Brandon, was that not – that was after we graduated, right?
Yeah, it was.
So I think we were at senior week.
I think we were. You're right.
And I remember us watching it in the Purple Parrot.
Yeah.
Not believing what we were seeing.
We were downstairs. I do remember that now. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
You know, most of that documentary, I'm kind of like you know, Brandon, you said earlier, remembering it. I think that was the cool part for me, was knowing what was going to happen because I remembered it. But then when you see it again, it was just like seeing it for the first time. Like, it was just all the emotion, all the feelings. Like, that whole documentary, man, I'm not going to lie, just the whole nostalgia of it for me. And it made me realize just how much back then it all meant to me.
Yep.
And how big of a fan I was of Michael Jordan. And just like I said, I mean, he was like a god to me at the time. I just never thought I would be able to follow somebody or want to be like somebody so bad, you know, and just middle school trying to emulate every move and just, you know, and it makes me kind of sad for kids these days because I just don't think, I know that they have sports figures and heroes to look up to, the LeBrons, the Kobes, you know, I know all that. I just don't think it's the same though. And I don't know why. Maybe that's just me, but this documentary made me, like, I teared up. I don't know how many times, several times. And I didn't even really know why. It was just like, I don't know why I'm so upset, but it just really got to me. I just relived it all, honestly.
Every game, State So High, I had on my Carolina basketball camp shorts under my Greyhound uniform.
Yep.
Every game.
You know, it's funny you say that because I played with my Carolina shorts under my baseball uniform every game. And I wore a wristband up on my forearm.
Oh, yeah.
Because Jordan wore one on his, you know.
Who didn't wear a wristband playing ball?
I don't even know why.
Yeah.
I can even
and the knee brace that wasn't even on your knee. It was on your
yes.
Yeah.
I don't even know why he wore it, but I wore one. Everybody did. You know,
I couldn't do the Carolina shorts.
Do what?
I couldn't do the Carolina shorts by that time in high school because I was too big of a Duke fan, but I always wore Jordans. I wore Jordans every basketball season.
And I don't know if you guys noticed it, you probably did, but when he was playing baseball and they were interviewing him while he was watching the Bulls in the playoffs, you saw right behind him was a pair of his Carolina basketball short extra larges.
Yeah.
So you know he wore them shorts up underneath his baseball pants.
The thing was so, like, the whole documentary, I thought, I mean, take out the Michael Jordan highlights or whatever. The writing of the documentary, the music of the documentary, the little side stories that they went through with the documentary, it was just everything about it was just phenomenal.
Dude, that soundtrack.
Agreed.
They have to make a soundtrack for that documentary because it's going to get downloaded.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
I felt like I was back at middle school dances with the prom again.
Yeah. For real, there were some good ones on there.
Yeah.
It was very good. You know, another thing that I thought was really interesting too was, I don't know if it was just towards the last 3 seasons or whatnot, but I thought it was interesting that Michael surrounded himself with his security guards. I mean, those were his friends. Those were his buddies. That's who he kind of hung out with. And why? And nothing wrong with that, because I love hanging out with older people. They're wiser. You can learn a lot from them. They're funny. They don't even know it, but I just wonder, like, to him, what was it about that group of guys that made him so comfortable that it was like, I'm hanging out with these dudes,
I think he felt like that they wouldn't betray him. I think that with that whole Jordan Rules book that came out, apparently Jordan swears up and down that Horace Grant was the snitch and provided a lot of the information for that. Horace Grant still denies it, but I think he felt extremely betrayed by that. And I think that older group of people that he began to hang out with, he knew that they really didn't – he took care of them, so he knew that they had no ulterior motive.
They were loyal. But, even though, like, he took care of them, I'm sure, like, healthcare, financial-wise, I think that he knew that maybe he could trust them because they liked him for being Michael.
Yeah.
Not MJ or not Jordan. Like, they liked the human being that we got to see some of that during this documentary that other folks did not get to see.
Well, and I think when you get to a certain level, any superstar, I think it's probably hard to trust that anybody cares about anything other than what they can get from you. So I think that, somehow he bonded with these guys and it became a true friendship, and he felt like he could be himself and not have to be guarded, not have to, like Brandon was saying, he could trust them. I'm sure he probably didn't say 90% of the things he wanted to say around certain groups, because you never know who was going to tell somebody something. So I think all these superstars find a handful of people they can trust, and somehow those guys just became his.
Hey, Brandon, you're the only one here who has coaching experience, championship ring experience. I read an article where I'm trying to think. They had asked Michael if he would ever, I think this is before he purchased the Hornets, but if he would ever be a coach. And he said, no, there's no chance, because players today don't have the mental, and I'm totally not quoting this right, but basically they don't have the mental toughness that he would require to be on his team. So we're in a different world than we were in the 90s and even in the early 2000s. How do you get younger kids today to be present in the moment and to be motivated to win?
I think I've just been fortunate to have those kids that are pretty self-motivated. I feel like I've never really, there's always an exception, but in 16 years, maybe a year total, I felt like I had to coach effort and want to. Like I said, I've been blessed to have kids that were super competitive, that wanted to win, that wanted to be a part of something bigger than themselves, that all had a common goal in mind. Now, obviously, you have some kids along the way that have motivations, individual motivations and selfishness and things like that, but I think I've been lucky. I know there's a lot of coaches out there that are going to say different from what I can say, but I enjoyed the kids that I had.
Good for you. I was expecting a totally different answer. I was expecting some like millennial Phil Jackson, Buddha Zen, like Brandon, have them coming by the droves and like,
And we were burning poems in the bucket. And
like nice.
I got lucky.
I
I don't think there's anybody that I've coached as more competitive than I am that wanted to win worse than I did. I think there's kids that have been close, but I mean, I'm not Michael Jordan by any means, but I hate to lose at anything.
Yep. You know, it's I hate to lose at anything too. I mean, I actually fucking despise it. But even with my kids, when we're playing basketball in the living room or whatnot, I know I'm supposed to let them win.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time letting them win. They're 3, and I
Yeah.
feel like they need to learn how to lose.
Yeah, you let them get this close, and then you just
Yeah,
push yourself
exactly.
over the top.
And Kristen's like, honey, you need to let them win. And I was like, no. I mean, they need to earn it. They need to earn this victory over daddy. Because one day, because I had kids old. I mean, when my kids are going to be graduating high school, I'm going to be 50. Oh, my God. I'm going to be 53. Is that right?
No, you'll be older than that. You said it 3?
3.
That'll be 15 years from now. You'll be 55.
I'll be 55. I'll be double nickels when my kids are graduating.
Kyle, you're old.
That's okay, though. Guess what? They're still not beating dad. Nope.
No.
Nope. I'm going to throw the football farther, harder. We're going to shoot ball. I will still throw the baseball harder. I don't know.
You'll end up in the ER.
The shoulders were at. Listen, you done took me once. Thanks.
But I mean, but we grew up different. You can remember the days where if you're playing basketball out in the yard, you beat somebody you wasn't supposed to beat.
Of course.
Like
Oh,
legitly.
Yeah.
Legitly.
And you felt like you earned that, and how good that felt. And you worked every day to get to that point.
Yeah.
You know, that's another thing of this documentary that that I took away too, that I forgot, because life has become busy with work, marriage, kids. You know, I'm not involved in any sort of athletics anymore other than trying to still work out. I don't play golf nearly at all anymore, but we had a golf tournament a couple weeks ago, and some guys were kind of talking smack and challenging one another to some friendly bets. But I felt so excited with my adrenaline. Like, I forgot how much I love to compete. I love it. It's fun, and it's a good thing. And I'm going to remember that and take that part for me personally from this documentary, that I need to do more things to compete other than with my 3-year-old who can run fastest around the living room. But other stuff, man, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to get out there and compete and get those competitive juices flowing.
So I have a question for you guys. So I think everybody on this video chat would agree that Michael Jordan's the greatest to ever play basketball. Is that correct?
That's my
Who would you say, out of everyone, past, present, possibly future, if there's some college kids, I mean, who do you think will go down in history as being number 2? And how close is that number 2 to being number 1?
Go ahead, Brandon. You take it first.
I mean, I guess I have to say only on pure championships alone, because that's what we measure people at. Are we talking about basketball?
Yeah.
I mean, I never got to see the guy play, but Bill Russell, I mean, he won 11 championships. So, I mean, I don't know how I can, for me, I don't know how. There are others, you know, but the guy won 11. 11. I mean, I don't even have that many fingers. No? So, for me, I'll have to go with Bill Russell.
And I'm sure there's people that were around in the 60s that are like us talking about LeBron and say, oh, he's not Michael Jordan. There's probably people from the 60s saying, oh, Michael Jordan's not Bill Russell.
Right.
Right. And it's always hard to tell. I mean, I wasn't a Kobe fan, but he was really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, he had as close to a drive as Michael Jordan as I've seen on a basketball court. He won the championship. Tim Duncan, we've already talked about. And being a Spurs fan, I like Tim Duncan. I mean, I despised him when he was at Wake, being a Carolina fan, because he was so good.
Yeah.
But being a Spurs fan, I mean, they didn't win any without him there. I mean, LeBron, I'm a card-carrying member of the LeBron Hater Club.
Me too.
But
Me too.
but there's, but I will
No.
not deny the fact that he's the best player in the NBA right now by far.
Sure.
Right.
Doesn't mean I have to like him, which I'm never going to, but he is the best player by far in the NBA right now, and he's doing it at a level like Michael did it in '98 when Michael was 35, 36. LeBron's that same age now, and he's still playing at that high level.
Yeah.
Before you give your answer, Kevin, I want to expand on that LeBron, because I was thinking about this earlier today. LeBron is not the best basketball player ever, but he might be the best well-rounded basketball player minus defense. Because he can pass and he can score, okay? And he's more of to me, like a Magic Johnson type of player. He can handle the ball and he can distribute and do all that stuff. But the guys today, minus Kobe, those guys don't play defense. And that's a part of the game that where Michael was he a 9-time all defensive player?
Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, so not only
defensive player of the year.
Do what now?
He won defensive player of the year of the entire league.
I think 9 times.
Yeah.
Somebody fact check me on that.
Where's your guy?
I don't have a guy. Yeah. That's in season 4. We're gonna have a bigger budget. I need to come up with more money.
So, my thing is, the big debate always now is LeBron, Jordan, Kobe, Jordan, all that stuff. I just always break it down to the will to win. And I'm with you, Brandon. I think Kobe was the closest to having that, just the will to win, that dig down deep and do whatever it takes. I think he has that above LeBron for sure. There's a lot of good players from back in the day, of course, but for me, I think Kobe's probably in the future will go down as being what people will claim to be the closest thing to Jordan. LeBron, obviously, like, I'm with you. I don't like him. He's great, though. He's a great basketball player. I just don't like his game. I think his game's ugly. I think it's I just don't like it. But he does a lot of great stuff off the court, though. He does. But as far as just basketball goes,
but he lets you know about it. He lets you know about it.
He does. But I just his game to me is just, he's just such just a big, muscular, athletic dude. He just bullies his way to the rim,
and he gets 5 steps.
He does. And for me, it's just not the same. And it goes back to the will to win. LeBron's a great player. Kobe, I liked Kobe a lot. I was a big Kobe fan. Kobe basically, when Jordan retired, I said I'd never watch another NBA game.
Yeah.
And Kobe did that for me. He kept me involved as far as NBA. But I just don't think anybody – it goes back to my question earlier with any sport, really. I do like the Tiger Woods comment that he had that will to win, that extra step. I would agree with that. But I just think overall, I don't think in my lifetime I've seen an athlete have that, whatever you call it, that Jordan has.
Literally, if Jordan was on the golf course with Tiger Woods, obviously they're going to have a friendly wager. Michael's going to lose. And then Michael's going to go back to the house and play cards with Tiger. If Michael lost in that, Michael would look at Tiger and say, I'm going to race you to the Ferrari and see who wins. As long as he wanted something.
Oh, and then it might be that in his mind, he might set a goal for himself that in a year he's going to be the best golfer in the world. And he might not have become the best golfer in the world, but he would have damn sure tried.
Tried. I'm going to tell y'all what. I'm going to tell you something else that I think is, speaking of, it just hit me. Do y'all remember Michael Jordan and his finger? Everyone saw that finger, that jacked up finger on the thing. You know how he did that, right? Or the story. So Michael Jordan's pointer finger on his right hand and on the shooting hand is all jacked up. It's all whopper jawed here. Because shortly after they won that championship in '98, he had to have surgery on that finger because they said that his story is that he cut it in a cigar cutter.
I do remember that.
I'm just going to go ahead and throw the bullshit flag because I've smoked some cigars. And Michael Jordan has increased my cigar consumption over the last 5 weeks. I'm going to be honest with you. But there ain't no damn way you done severed that tendon. What kind of cigar cutter do you have? And what is your finger doing that far in it?
And surely he's got a guy that cuts his cigars for him.
I don't know, man. He smokes 6 cigars a day. He cuts his own. But he is full of shit. I'm
so
sorry.
what do you have a theory of how he did
No,
it?
I have no theory, but I know that one ain't it.
I thought you were just gonna tell us something.
No. Yeah, I was waiting for like the climax here. I was like,
I don't know. I'm just giving you the
like
I'm sorry.
I thought you were gonna say like, oh well, here what I actually heard happen, and you didn't do that at all.
If I had the theory, like if he shoot off the hip, I think Michael was having a good night. He had some cocktails and did something that would reflect poorly on him and his image and the brand, whatever that could have been, and that ain't getting out. But anybody with a little bit of the fucking common sense is going to know that you have not cut your finger in a cigar cutter. How drunk were you, Mike?
Somebody might have challenged him to like a thumb wrestling for $1 million, and he got that finger in there.
So is there anything else left about the documentary that we didn't cover that you guys want to talk about or shed light on, or what was your favorite or funniest, or what you wish they would have hit on before we end this? Kevin?
Go ahead, kid.
Oh gosh. I just think that I think it was really well done. I think that everybody should watch it. Like I've said, twice now, just the nostalgia, just the emotions it stirred up in me of just remembering how great that time was. I'm super grateful that I got to see all that happen live, and live through that and be a fan and have something like that to look forward to and to always remember. For me, I think it was, it just showed the level of competitiveness that Jordan had, just the dominance of a sport and just the will to win. And it showed that, no matter what talents you have, you still have to work at it. And for somebody like him to still work harder than everybody, I think should instill some motivation to people, and just to take pride in being the best. And and he even, I think at one point they asked him about retiring, and they were like, were you glad to go out and retire when you were just at the top? And he was like, no. He was like, no, actually I wasn't. Like I had more left, so it just, for me, it just brought back that little kid again. I mean, I felt like I was 8-9 years old watching that documentary, and I think that's what got to me so much, is just it brought back memories of being a kid, shooting in the driveway with my dad, wearing my Jordan jersey from middle school.
Hey man, stand up, give the folks what they want to see.
Oh, and then I had this when I was in like the 7th grade or something, so it's a little tight.
There it is.
But it did, I was in the driveway and I was Jordan, my dad was Pimpin', it was just the whole thing, man. I just, it just made me remember just how great he was for me. And I hope that everybody just kind of takes away from it, not the mean stuff or what he was worried about, that I'm a bad guy or whatever, but just the level that he played at and didn't take it for granted.
We were 18 at the time, and Kevin, you and I played basketball. Brandon obviously played in his yard and stuff, but didn't play like at the high school level with us. But
no, I got cut.
How many times do you recreate that at the Y or in your yard, the slight push off of Jordan on Brian Russell and going up and hitting that?
Oh yeah.
Like, how many times as an 18-year-old do you recreate that? Yeah,
a lot.
For me, it's just like, I remember, I don't even know how many months ago it was when they said they were going to come out with this thing. Like, I just envisioned how good it was going to be, and watching it the last 5 weeks, like, my imagination and thoughts didn't even come close to how good it actually was.
Yeah.
Like 10 hours was just not enough.
Need more. looking forward to this thing for several months for sure. And after it would end on Sunday nights, man, I was just so disappointed because those 2 hours went by so fast, and then having to wait on it. The anticipation was exciting, but I think for an underlying takeaway for me that I was happily surprised with was the fact that family was so important to Micheal Jordan, that he had such a family unit with us. He had good parents, his mom and his dad, and they were present, and they seemed to raise him right. And the fact that his dad was truly his best friend, and this respect that a man that has accomplished so much and is literally a superhero to me still respects his mom so much, that now being a family man, it reminds me to try to set the best example for my kids that I can. That if Micheal Jordan still thinks about his dad and holds his mom in that regard, then that's a big bar for me to step up to. So that was a big takeaway for me.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look, fellas, I enjoyed it. I appreciate everything. Let's do this again sometime.
Yeah.
Kevin, is there anything that you want to promote, or Brandon, anything you want to promote? Throw it out there.
Let me just say, like, this is my first time on the show. Obviously, you guys have done, I don't even know how many episodes you've done now, Brandon. It's a
Number
lot.
68, I believe.
68?
Yep.
So, I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I can talk basketball all day long with people. But I appreciate you having me on here. I appreciate what both of y'all do for this little town of ours. It's a lot different than it was 20 years ago. There's some things I'm sure that we wish that we could bring back, but there's a lot of things that are for the better now. Both of y'all do a good job of promoting our little quaint town that I love, and I know both of you guys love. So I appreciate you guys doing that as well, having me on the show, and for what you guys are doing for the city of Statesville.
Well, thank you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Kevin, anything?
No. Just Brandon, there's been some backdoor talks, some discussions, and I do have a job opportunity for you whenever you're ready to step back into the coaching scene. So just let me know. There's an ongoing discussion with a certain individual I can't say out loud, but
if the money's right, I can be persuaded to do a lot of stuff.
There it is. Get your checkbook out. Just like cool. Hey guys, well, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button on iTunes and all the podcasting platforms, and the YouTube channel. Thank you to States Vegas Clothing Company for being a show supporter. Thank you to Hunk of Junk Hauling. One call removes it all. Thank you for Integrity Securities and Casey Tate at Farm Bureau Insurance. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
all right. See y'all.